International Edition is made possible in part by the Hilton Hotels Corporation, America's business address, and its subsidiary, Conrad International Hotels, the world's business address, and by the members of Maryland Public Television.
This week, the views of reporters from Germany, Denmark, and Canada. We'll look at President Reagan's new plan for Nicaragua and a special report. Crime in America, Images, Myths, and Reality, next on International Edition.
I've lost my ignorance and don't know where to find, so I search furiously. I've lost my ignorance and don't know where to find, so I search furiously. I've lost my ignorance and don't know where to find, so I search furiously. I've lost my ignorance and don't know where to find, so I search furiously. I've lost my ignorance and don't know where to find, so I search furiously.
As we debated the Gets shooting, it again became reasonably safe to ride the subway. Crime decreased from 38 cases per day. Gets was proclaimed a modern vigilante. The politicians refused to accept the idea of people taking the law into their own hand, but the message came through. Mayor Koch tried to reassure the citizens.
We won't be satisfied until people feel safe and are safe on our streets and our subways.
But the statistics showing the decline are questionable, and the daily exposure to violence and crime through the media is increasing the fear for violence, a violence becoming more and more perverse in proportion with the increased use of drugs.
Police at the 75th Precinct were continuing their search for the whereabouts of 4 men. These men allegedly conducted a bloody rampage through a 2-family Brooklyn home last night. They killed 3 men execution style, shot and stabbed 2 other men and 3 women. One of the women was also raped, plus 3 children were abused.
Statistics show an increasing fear among Americans. Half of the U.S. population is constantly afraid of being victimized. In the affluent areas here on Fifth Avenue, the TV cameras on the walls, the uniformed doorkeepers are part of the security measures taken, part of everyday life. In other areas, less affluent areas in New York, there is no security, no supervision, and too few police officers. As is the case in 23rd Precinct in East Harlem, around 102nd Street East, a part of Harlem mainly inhabited by blacks and Hispanics, a rundown part of town with lots of drugs and crime.
Et skænderi over checken fra socialkontoret.
We'll open the door. We'll knock on the door. If she don't open it, we can't bust it down. Then it's a civil suit. You got to take it to court.
De fattigste områder i New York.
Harlem is well known for its poverty and crime, but in their daily work, Sam Bergman and Donna Battaglia is watching a development in the community which goes beyond Harlem, goes to similar urban areas all over the world.
Saying when our generation was growing up, we would never have thought of taking a knife to somebody and stabbing them for $15, $16, or even less. And the kids today, they don't even think twice about it, about taking your life. Your life doesn't mean anything, as long as they can buy their drugs and buy their alcohol.
Why is it? Is it because the influence of the media, it has come to this, or is it, as you mentioned, the poverty?
That has to do with the home life, yeah. No supervision at home. Most of the times their parents are junkies, so it's something they grew up with.
Or teenagers.
Most of the time their parents are teenagers, children themselves. There's no supervision. They're out on the streets till any time of night.
It's especially the black community that's threatened, and some black politicians now argue that decades of policy towards the black has failed, has drained the initiative. Among those politicians is Roy Innis, who also advocates tough measures and self-defense against criminals.
By the citizens not waiting for the police, that the citizens reserve for themselves the right to self-defense, for once. And secondly, that the citizen accept the responsibility for his brother. In other words, that if I should see you, even though you're not from my community, if I should see you being attacked by some criminals, I should not turn the other way.
Roy Innis is also arguing that drugs have destroyed the soul of the black community. On 108th Street, the citizens demonstrated against the invasion of pushers in the street. Drugs is a billion-dollar industry that drags crime and violence along into the communities. More than half of all crimes committed in the U.S. are drug-related, a fact that frustrates, among others, the judges who day after day hand out sentences just to see the offenders come back.
Drugs are absolutely, in my view, the underlying cause of much of the crime that we have, and it's getting worse, absolutely worse. Heroin and cocaine is available on, I don't want to say every street corner, but almost every street corner. And as fast as we get one, 3 more spring up with it. It's a very scary thing, and if you want to talk about crime in this country, I'd say the bottom line is really the proliferation of drugs.
Stefan, I'd like to ask you about that last point, about drugs. In your country, in Copenhagen, that's a center for drug traffic in your part of Europe. Do you have the same kind of crime problems because of drugs there?
No, we do not, but we do not have the same amount, even in proportion, of drugs as you have, especially in New York City.
You don't really think about it. It's just like, it's something, just an ordinary night, something just getting out of hand,
If you don't straighten out whatever it is that brought the man to jail, when you do eventually put him back into society, he's going to commit another crime and he's going to come back to jail again.
Hello, I'm Alan Christian. Welcome to State Line, Maryland's in-depth look at issues that affect the quality of our lives. This week we peer into the mind of the violent offender. The state's prisons are overflowing with men who've committed violent crimes. Many will serve their time and be released. Will they commit more crimes? What kind of person commits acts of violence, and what does the state do to change his behavior while he's incarcerated? Joining us to discuss this issue is Dr. John Lyon, professor of psychiatry at the University of Maryland and an internationally known expert on violence. We'll talk with our guest in a moment, but first, Jeffrey Cole has this report.
We were on drugs, I guess, it's only, well, like I said, there's music has stuff to do with it too. Music is pretty violent and has stuff to do with biting. There's a song that my teeth has rabies, I'm going to give it to you, right? It's just like the lyrics just repeat over and over and over, and like you just hear them so many times, you think it's the okay thing to do, like there ain't nothing wrong with it.
James Tremble is a 19-year-old murderer. He was given the death sentence for his crime. He was 17 when he murdered.
After I raped the first woman, it was a relief for me. It took all the confusion, all the insecurities, all these bad emotional feelings were just released.
Charles Doyle is 36 years old. He is a rapist who was sentenced to life in prison. His criminal history dates back before he was a teenager. Doyle and Tremble have more in common than their heinous crimes and long sentences. At one time, both men displayed a personality that makes them little understood and often feared by those who study mental disorders. Tremble is, Doyle may still be, a sociopath. Psychologist Kenneth Deal has seen many of these men during the 6 years he worked in Maryland's prisons.
That's a topic that I don't think we completely understand, of why a person would act entirely in the form of Charles Manson. It seems to take a certain configuration of personality, a lot of times an inadequate person, a person without feelings, a person without a feeling of success or accomplishment, and they commit the crime, be it the violent murder or whatever, in order to alleviate some of those feelings in themselves of worthlessness.
James Tremble grew up in this Essex home. His mother was past 40 when she gave birth to him. His father died when he was 10. It was then, psychiatrists believe, Tremble began to show violent behavior.
As a kid, I have hurt animals, only, once in a while, but, they act like it's an everyday thing. Maybe if I see a turtle laying around, or something like that, I'd throw it up in the air and, let it hit the ground, but it wouldn't hurt the turtle none. He has a hard shell, Or a cat. I remember one time I threw a cat out in the river. That's about it.
As Tremble grew older, he lived in this shed in his backyard. When arrested for the murder, police found a Charles Manson poster and the book Helter Skelter in the shed. Tremble's interest in violence was intensified by listening to punk rock groups like the Dead Kennedys and by his use of PCP and LSD. He remembers hallucinating.
One time I remember I hallucinated so bad that I thought I was getting eaten alive, and I thought things were attacking me and stuff like that. And if people tell you it ain't happening, you just won't believe it. It's like, to you, it's happening. And
PCP and alcohol played a large role in the murder Tremble committed. It was here at Skip's Tavern in Essex on the evening of July 3rd, 1981, when the night of horror began for Melanie Newsom and Nyla Rogers. In the parking lot, they were convinced by a friend, James Hanna, to go for a ride in his van. It was there that they met James Tremble. Tremble and 4 other men had been drinking and taking drugs when they met Newsom and Rogers. They were driven to a rural part of Baltimore County. During the drive, both women were sexually abused. Melanie Newsom later testified she was bitten on the cheek and left breast by Tremble. The girls pleaded to be let out of the van.
It was too far into what was going on to stop it then. By the time they asked to get out, it was the girls, don't have their clothes off. They ain't just gonna stop. If you get in bed with a girl and she has all of her clothes off and all this stuff, and she tells you that, no, never mind, I don't want to do nothing, it's like, you ain't gonna stop, are you? At least I wouldn't.
The murder took place in this cornfield in Baltimore County. Melanie Newsom was taken into the woods by one of the men where he attempted to rape her. She got away. Nyla Rogers didn't. She was hit over the head with a baseball bat, dragged into the cornfield, beaten again, and her throat was slit. Tremble admitted doing the killing to a police detective, but not to us.
You don't really think about it. It's just like, it's something, just an ordinary night, something just getting out of hand,
How many James Trembles are there in Maryland's prisons? Kenneth Deal believes 5% of the 11,000 inmates could be like him. But more alarming, he feels, are the large numbers of inmates who may not be violent but are sociopathic and will commit more crime if not treated. But that treatment is often too little.
We're seeing them for 1 hour a week or an hour and a half each week. And for the remaining week, they are with other inmates, some of whom are antisocial personalities. Their lifestyle, their thinking patterns, their behaviors are getting reinforced, and there's not very much we can do with that hour and a half.
And with Maryland's prisons overcrowded by almost 4,000 inmates, Deal says fewer are actually ever treated.
Within the state correctional facilities, there is a very minimal effort and very minimal results at accomplishing that. The only institution that has shown any degree of success with that type of problem is Patuxent.
Because I couldn't have her on my visiting list, that is what triggered my irritation or the intensity. And what I'm saying is that I didn't give a shit whether she was on my visiting list or not. I could accept that. The problem that I had and what irritated me was the fact that he was viewing me the way that he was, and the group was viewing me as if you're doing something wrong. You know.
Charles Doyle is undergoing group therapy at Maryland's Patuxent Institution. Patuxent is the state's only prison mandated by law to rehabilitate. 600 inmates take part in the prison's rehabilitation process, but not all who want to come get in. First, they must show a board of prison staff and community members they can be helped. Dr. Norma Gluckstern is the director of Patuxent.
That they demonstrate some type of remorse. They demonstrate some type of motivation of trying to help themselves, some sense of responsibility for the crime.
Charles Doyle convinced prison staff to let him in 7.5 years ago. That was after spending 22 of his 36 years in prison for crimes like theft and assault. His most recent offense is rape. 7.5 years of therapy at Patuxent has forced him to look back.
One time my mother walked in on me and some other kids that were playing in the shed, and I was hanging from the ceiling rafters, you know, just swinging back and forth and playing. I think I was about 6 years old then. And a couple of the kids were pulling on my trousers, trying to pull my trousers down. And my mother reacted as if this was, you know, a very horrible thing that was going on. And like I felt real guilty that I had done something wrong.
Doyle's sex offenses and 2 broken marriages have been the focus of his therapy since coming to Patuxent. Doyle's therapist, Devon Brown, has made him relive his crime.
I think it was extremely anger-provoking for him. He did not wish to do it, and when he did do it, you could see on his face the intensity of the hatred that he felt towards women.
Like all inmates at Patuxent, Doyle's rehabilitation began on what is called Level 1. Here, inmates are double-celled and are locked in most of the day. Inmates even on this level must take part in group counseling. In this session, inmate Charles Wright has lost his job in the prison because of a disagreement with a guard.
What have you learned? Have you had to do it again? Would you do anything differently?
Well, I would definitely do one thing differently, and it would be confront the unit as a whole, because I feel like had I done so, I would have got more support from the unit.
When therapists are impressed with an inmate's progress, he is moved to a higher level. Doyle lives on the final level before release. Here, cells are unlocked and inmates are free to use a game room. By this time, the inmate should be advancing in school and should be able to handle the pressures of living in society.
There will be people in life that will realize that I'm an ex-rapist and I'm on the street, and they will have certain feelings about that. I can deal with it now. You know, I feel good about me, and I have some tools now. I've got an education since I've been here on a personal level. I've got an education as far as in school. I've got a couple shops since I've been here. I can go back out in society and function.
Therapist Devon Brown.
I have no question that he feels that now he's stronger than he's ever been in his life, and he probably is. But the question is that strong enough to make it? There's still some areas that need further probing, namely in his sexual relationships, his sexual thoughts, his ability to interact with women on a positive note.
Before Doyle or any inmate is released, this group, Patuxent's Board of Review, must give the okay. They have the unique authority to parole an inmate regardless of his sentence when they feel he is ready. They also review inmates' yearly progress. Dwight Dubbins is serving time for a shooting. He came before the board happy about his progress. It didn't last long.
Did you feel this way when you shot the guy?
Didn't feel anything when I shot him. I was drunk. I was high. I didn't care.
But you care now.
Yeah, I care.
Well, what are you upset about? Can you tell us why you're upset?
Because I know that I'm trying real hard to change. And from what Mr. Parker says, I feel that I can't really tell him that I'm changing. I got to show that I'm changing. You know? And I feel that he don't believe that. I am trying to change.
Dubbins has shown the board he's not ready to be paroled, but there are those who are paroled, 15 to 20%, only to commit more crime. But there are no guarantees a man won't go back to crime, says Devon Brown.
But recognizing that we can change and that there is hope for all of us, I have little qualms in making educated guesses concerning the readiness of an individual to go out. There's no 100% guarantee.
We think
Norma Gluckster.
Until our society is sort of ready to put the switch on everybody or lock everybody up and throw away the key, there are going to be institutions like Patuxent or some form of treatment program. And that it's society's decision. We are protecting the victims. These men are going to get out. And at least the ones that get out from Patuxent have a better chance of not ever committing another crime than I think the ones coming out of the regular penal system.
If you don't straighten out whatever it is that brought the man to jail, when you do eventually put him back into society, he's going to commit another crime and he's going to come back to jail again. So rather than gearing the whole thing towards punishment, I think what Patuxent is trying to do is gear it towards trying to help the man understand what caused him to come to jail, to go to work on trying to change that, so when he does go back out in the streets that he has a better chance of making it, you know.
I'm Jeffrey Cole, reporting.